Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Aramaic Bible study. These Bible studies are intended for students of the Aramaic language and its many dialects, Semitic language students more broadly, such as Hebrew or Akkadian. And this week, we'll actually be looking at some Akkadian words in the Hebrew Bible. Now, when I say Hebrew Bible, I'm referring to the Hebrew and Aramaic portions of the Bible. So you'll find large chunks of the book of Daniel and Ezra written in Aramaic that is handed down to us. And really, I want to concentrate on one verse. You've heard me talk about it before if you have viewed my channel, and it's from Ezra, and it's Ezra 4:20. I did it for all you college students out there. I could have picked 4:13, but you know how college kids are, and they like things like 4:20. So I don't know about that. Maybe that's old too. Maybe that's not a big deal now that everything's legal. But let's do Ezra 4:20 while we're at it. We're going to read it in Aramaic. Then we're going to point out some Akkadian words in the Aramaic. So let's go ahead and read the verse. وملخين تقيفين حوو على يروشلم وشالتين بخول عبد نهرة مدة فلو وخلق مثيهب الهون. And that translates to, there were mighty kings over Jerusalem, and they have ruled in all beyond the river, or all the region beyond the river, and tribute, tax, and toll was paid to them. So looking at these Aramaic terms, I mean, this is all Aramaic, but if you look toward the end of the sentence, you have a number of terms that are sourced in the Akkadian language. And they begin with midah, which you see earlier or later in the book of Ezra as minda. And that is just meaning something like tribute, something you give over. We see velo or below when it's by itself and not following an open syllable. And that is basically a tax or something carried. And then we see this idea of a toll or a halak. You may know that if you're a student of Hebrew, same root as to go or walk. And in fact, in Akkadian, when it's used, it can refer to corvée service or required service of some type. So just looking again at the words, especially as they compare to the Akkadian, we see that minda or midda compares with our Akkadian nadanu. Nadanu is the verb to give. And so there's different verbs to give in Aramaic. So we would say things like you have, in fact, if you look at the last or second to last word in the sentence, methihev is given, right? So that's Aramaic. But in Akkadian, you have nadanu. And this is a lot like our Hebrew natan. So the D versus T, or the Dalet versus Tav, that you see between Akkadian and Hebrew is a normal dental shift. These sounds are made with our teeth. And so there's this phonological spectrum, we could call it. And sometimes you will see words articulated with different letters across dialect, even though they sound very similar. If you're an English speaker, you can think of it sort of like the way that English compares to German. Now, English is a Germanic language, so they're cousins and not necessarily mutually intelligible, but many words are the same or of the same origin. So just to illustrate, we'll use the word good. In English, we have good that ends in a D, but in German, we have gut that ends in a T. So again, these are dental sounds. They're very close together, and it just depends on the region where someone's accent is that will sort of draw the dividing line between languages. And that's the case between things like Akkadian and Aramaic, or Hebrew in this case. Now, this word velo is a little more challenging. Yastro ties it to the Akkadian term biltu. Another possibility is that it could be the Persian word used in Akkadian baru, meaning to carry, but biltu is basically just a tax. And so rather having the feminine form in Akkadian, the Aramaic here is using what looks like a masculine form. And finally, we have halak, which corresponds to the ilku. Now, usually when we talk about ilku in Akkadian, we don't even bother translating it because it's a specific type of, call it tax, but usually it's work or service that's performed for something. You could be in like a field, a garden. It could be on behalf of the king or the state, right? And so If you're holding a piece of land, it may be the type of payment through either the land itself, or it could be part of what the land produces, right? That could be one's ilku. And so it's both a noun and it's from the root alakum, which sounds like our Akkadian here, halak here. And so when you give it over or you perform it, you walk your walk is kind of the way it translates into Akkadian, or you go your go. Basically, you're doing something service oriented rather than product oriented, right? And you can think of it in terms of how businesses operate. They're either a service or they hold some kind of stock of goods, right? And so this one is not. This one has the idea of activity or service tied to it. So a short little highlight here, but worth noting. In fact, if you ever get an opportunity to study biblical Aramaic, I hope you also get a chance to study Akkadian because it really sort of amplifies what we know about biblical Aramaic. Things sometimes that we will look at in biblical Aramaic and say, okay, well, this is a biblical Aramaic form. Well, it's an Akkadian form. Why? Think about it. Biblical Aramaic is a Mesopotamian Aramaic. It's an Aramaic following the exile that the community brings back on behalf of the Persian Empire that uses Aramaic in the West as its administrative language. And so it's natural a number of Mesopotamian terms are going to be embedded in this dialect of Aramaic. So thank you all for watching and all of your kind comments and support. Go ahead and do the algorithmic duties, like, share, subscribe, comment. And of course, I'm going to keep promoting the elevation of Aramaic. We want Aramaic to be as well known and talked about and studied as some of our other classical languages like Latin and Greek. It's such an interesting language, and it's worth not only preserving in its ancient forms, but also its modern forms as well. So let's elevate Aramaic. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.